I will be happy when, so on and so forth. But we're
on this incredible tour of a troll-themed Norwegian town, but we get into a dumb argument. Our guide saves the day, whispering from behind a troll statue.
Don't fight! You're missing the view!
One app, over 300,000 experiences you'll remember. Do more with Viator.
thought of going through life and just leaving it all on the table because I'm just in this state of sort of constant orgasmic bliss, and I don't fucking need to do anything anymore because I'm just blissed out, man.
Yeah.
Also doesn't sound particularly great, and I struggle to achieve that no matter how much tantra I try. And talk to me, this tension between the drive to do more, the acceptance of who we are, the wanting to show up in the world and to give it everything that we've got, and the gratitude for the things that we already have.
Yeah, well, it is a constant tension, and I think you want to be biased on the being side of it. I mean, certainly if you've succeeded enough, right? Like if you recognize that you've won the lottery on some level, and you are in a position now where there are billions of people who would consider their prayers answered if they could trade places with you, right? And there'll be a time in your life where you would give anything to trade places with who you are now, right? Like when you're in your last months of life and you're terminally ill, or you've lost someone very close to you. I mean, there's like when you have this moment in the sun where things are basically going well, right? I think it's appropriate to have a module in your mind which continually pings you, which says like if you can't enjoy this, right? Like if this is going to be wasted on you, you're never going to be happy, right? Like this, you should be able to enjoy this part. Like this is dessert, right? Dessert has arrived, and whatever story you have about all the other things you might do or become, this is really like this is a wonderful life, right? So can you settle into this at all with your attention, right? And if you can't, I think that's the problem to recognize, right? Like if the thing you should want to become is someone who's better at recognizing the beauty of your life moment to moment, right? Now there's a paradox there that ultimately has to be overcome, right? Like the wanting to become more spiritual, wanting to become a great meditator, wanting to become enlightened. That's a knot that gets untied, but it's a fairly refined one. But it's just totally appropriate to recognize this mismatch between what is objectively true of your life by comparison to anything else that is on the menu, and the general mediocrity of your way of being. Just the feeling. I mean, and so this is doled out to you, not in big chunks, but in moments, right? Like this is not like a grand plan. Like, okay, I got my calendar out. This month is going to be about X. Now I'm going to nail X, right? It's much more 1,000 lessons over the course of a day, right? Like you have to just be attentive to moments where you miss it, and moments where and then just recognizing that it's available now, right? Like a moment ago you were tied in a knot somehow for some reason, things were awkward or weird, and now you're back, right? So like I was coming to this interview, and I was late. I was 15 minutes late, and I hate being late for whatever reason, and so I'm kind of rushing to get out of the house, and my wife has got her own day ahead of her, and she's rushing to get out of the house, and we're sort of ping-ponging around each other, and we're kind of missing each other, and in and out of the bathroom, in and out of the closet, and I say goodbye to her, but it was sort of a goodbye like I've just completely missed her, like this beautiful woman who I've decided to spend my life with, and she's now just basically an obstacle I have to navigate around, so as to be 30 seconds earlier than I would otherwise be if I just took a moment to recognize how beautiful my life is, right? So I missed her, and then at the penultimate moment, as I'm grabbing my keys, I'm like, oh, here she is, right? And so I just stop her, I give her a kiss, and then I leave, right? And it's just the difference between finding that moment and not is enormous, right? And it's like the area under the curve could still suck a lot. It's like in the beginning, you might only have 20 moments like that a day, right? But the difference between being someone who never gets it clearly, right, and it never truly punctuates his busyness and ambition and disappointment and everything, every other module that's been installed, with just clear contact with the beauty and sacredness of the present moment. That difference is enormous. And once you have those punctate moments, and again, this is a meditation by another name, then you can have 100, and then you can have 1,000, and then the character of your life can more and more resemble the true virtues of being, even when you're still becoming. I mean, even when you have the whole apparatus of, you've got employees, you've got a calendar, you've got Slack is open all day. It's all that's happening. You can still be someone who's basically already happy, right? You're not leaning forward so much, and when you are leaning forward, part of you recognizes, okay, what's this about? Like you have a kind of mindfulness alarm that goes off when you're obviously expecting to become happy by the next thing, right? Rather than be truly taken in by that dream, part of you knows, okay, wait a minute, like just correct your posture a little bit. Like, that no matter how good this dinner is, it's just going to be a dinner, right? And then you're going to be too full, and then you're going to wish you hadn't eaten all that, and then you're going to find it hard to sleep, and then so like that there's, it can't be a matter of reaching and grabbing and fully satisfying your desire again and again and again as a way to finally become happy. You have to locate your satisfaction more and more in the state of being that is already here, that's preceding the next change. Your happiness can't be ultimately a matter of changing experience. It has to be a matter of recognizing the nature of experience. Now, that it can be very easy to have a cynical take on that and say, okay, well, it's easy for you to say, a rich white guy for whom everything's going great and nothing bad has yet happened, and the worst thing that happened to you was on Twitter, and so go fuck yourself. But no, first of all, many bad things have happened. Like, I know what it's like to lose someone close to me. I know what it's like to worry that your kid is really sick. I know what it's like to be waiting for the MRI. Like there are all these moments where even the luckiest among us know what it's like to live with real uncertainty and the knowledge that ultimately every bad thing, some version of every bad thing, is going to happen. I mean, even if you're the luckiest and healthiest and richest, then you're just going to be sitting by the phone, hearing that all your friends have died, right? Like, if you live to be 120 in perfect health, you're Peter Attia, and you're still doing kettlebells at 120, which
with
I hope
Andrew Huberman,
yeah, I hope you are, Peter and Andrew. Then you're just going to be getting, voicemails and texts and whatever else exists at that point, hearing that all these people you loved have disappeared, right? So no one gets out of here without a real encounter with Greek level tragedy. And the question is it possible to have a mind that can embrace that with equanimity and compassion and love and tranquility, or do you just have to pretend none of that's going to happen? The normal mode is to try to be lucky enough so that you can pretend hard enough and long enough that none of that shit applies to me, right? Like, I'm just going to, I'm going to stay healthy for as long as I can stay healthy. I'm not going to think about cancer until somebody has cancer. I'm going to extract as much pleasure as I possibly can in the moment. And, look, that Bugatti over there is mine, right? So it's like that's at best that's impermanent, right? Even if that was as satisfying as someone could pretend, and we actually know it's not, and you can know that from the inside. The more you have those experiences, it's impermanent. You know, I mean, it's like at a certain point, Andrew Tate is going to be the 80-year-old with bad tattoos, right? Like it's just not. It's like it's not. It doesn't scale. You need another gear, and there are many names for this. I mean, wisdom is one name, spirituality, enlightenment, awakening, meditation. I mean, all of these concepts, psychedelic experiences, all of these tools and concepts are triangulating on a part of the map where one's well-being isn't contingent upon changes in experiences. There's a recognition that is possible about the nature of conscious life itself that is fulfilling.
Giving ourselves a good enough reason to just be here in the present moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're both fans and friends with Paul Bloom, and Paul managed to draw the perhaps surprising correlation between this and a dominatrix that he'd interviewed.
As he would, yeah. He's great with surprising correlations, yeah.
And it really made me realize, because I think it's in maybe the Death in the Present Moment talk that you gave, or something else, that a lot of what we're doing externally with the way that we try and show up in the world, the way that we construct our exterior lives and our experience, is to give us a good enough reason to just be here now.
Yeah.
And people find this through staring at the night sky. People find this through going to raves and collective effervescence. They find it through, and Paul gave me this reason. He interviewed a dominatrix for one book, the one on pain maybe, and she'd said nothing captures attention like a whip.
Right.
Which means that if you get slapped hard by a lady, presumably in bicep length gauntlet leather gloves, high knee boots and stuff, if you get slapped by her, for the next 3 seconds, you're thinking about nothing apart from the fact, she just slapped me.
Yeah.
Ting! And you're just hearing that ringing in your ears, and that's it. And I think that the way that I've conceived of it, I wrote this on a beach, whilst kind of high on mushrooms, but I wrote it on a beach that the goal of a lot of mindfulness and the goal of a lot of what we're doing with our life should be to lower the bar to which we need the world's external stimulus to be in order for us to feel happy. It should be, as Naval says, if you won't be happy with a coffee, you won't be happy on a yacht.
Right. Yeah.
And continue to just whatever the reverse of progressive overload is.
Yeah.
Progressive underload, perhaps.
Yeah.
And just continue to chip away. I can find it when I'm washing the dishes. I can find it when I'm walking the dog. I can find it when I'm etc., waiting in traffic.
Yeah, and if that seems difficult, it certainly can be, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And the crucial point is that you have to recognize what the alternative is. Right? The alternative is just bad. The alternative is to not be happy, to be incapable of happiness, even when you have every reason to be happy. Right? It's the alternative is to be not all that loving, even when you're surrounded by people you ostensibly love. Right? Because you have a mind that is constantly fragmented. You're constantly looking elsewhere. You're constantly waiting for the next thing. You're constantly ruminating about that last thing. And you become bad company for the people in your life who you really want to whose lives when in your clear moments, you really you just want to magnify happiness in their presence, right?
This is what I think is an important leap, and I think that you make it very well in Waking Up, which I told you before we'd started. I think I've gifted my mum every Christmas for the last 3 years,
right.
Which has been a great assistance in me being able to get something delivered digitally the night before Christmas when I've left it too late. Yeah,
nice.
Annually. I highly recommend that everyone go and check it out. Taking it from an abstract, wishy-washy, this is something that's going to, maybe my anxiety will be a little bit better, maybe I won't feel my anger anymore, to as David Fuller says, does it grow corn? Like, show me if it grows any fucking corn.
Right.
Like, what does this do for me, to my life, to the relationships I have, to fundamentally the things that I care about the most. Now, the texture of our own minds is not nothing. In fact, you could argue maybe it's everything. But there is something beyond that too, and I think that the thin end of the wedge is getting people in through the door that, well, look at what this could do to your world, and then the worlds of the people that you care about, and then think about how that could ripple out if you want to be super altruistic and the town and the country and the planet that you're on, and so on and so forth. But that is the reminder when I've missed my meditation streak for too long that I get embarrassed about it, and I need to come back to using your app or the timer or whatever. That's the reminder for me that gets me through the door a lot of the time. And I'm hesitant. I came up with an idea the other day of productivity purgatory, which is the things that you do that are supposed to be recuperative are done only to make you more productive. So you kind of have this perpetual existence of everything I did. Pickleball I play is because I heard Andrew Huberman say on a podcast that, 45 minutes of zone 2 cardio per week helps me be able to focus better. And Peter Attia told me that I've got to go for a walk in the morning because of my glucose tolerance or whatever. Trying to not just do that, but, you can be driven by whatever it is to get you, I think, to get the activation energy, to get it moving. And for me, that's one of the most robust ways to remind me. Like, think about how it's going to change the nature of your daily experience internally and how you're going to show up for other people externally. I think that that's a leap which a modern version of mindfulness, and then tying it in with the life advice. It's not just being about the mindfulness. It's like, look at the fucking things that you're struggling with. Look at the things that you're challenged by now. The fact that you ruminate, you have regrets and shame and insufficiency and terror and fear and all that. There is an alternative experience of this, and the way that this allows you to show up in the world can also benefit from it too.
Yeah, and also there's no boundary between this thing we're calling meditation or mindfulness and the rest of one's life, right? I mean, that boundary is truly spurious, and it's an artifact of, first learning, not knowing the thing, then learning it, then setting aside 10 minutes a day or whatever to practice it. Or you go on a silent retreat for a month and then you come back to your life, and there seems to be this difference between life and retreat. But in reality all you have is your mind in each moment, and you're either suffering or not, you're either lost in thought or not, you're either clearly aware of what it's like to be you or not. And that fluctuation that's really the ground of this practice or these insights. I mean, that's where wisdom is. And so it's not, I would encourage people from the very beginning to view the practice as not at all being separate from the rest of their day. It's and you don't, in my view, you don't get any credit. I mean, there are consequences to practicing or not practicing, for most people, but it's like you don't get credit for having meditated earlier today. Like, I don't give myself, like, if I sat for 20 minutes, it's not like you bank those 20 minutes and now you're good to go for the rest of the day. It's like the rest of the day is your practice, right? Like your life is your practice. On some level, your life is a meditation. It's just you're paying attention to 1,000 different things, but in each moment, your attention is being drawn and being dedicated to something, and you are making your mind, you're making your being in the world based on how you pay attention. And meditation is just this period in the day where you've decided, okay, for these 10 minutes, I'm going to give myself permission not to think about anything else other than just paying attention. But ultimately, once you see the power of it, ultimately your entire life becomes that, even though you have to do other things, right? So you're doing, like, if I'm having this conversation, I'm fluctuating between being totally lost and clearly seeing the nature of my mind in this moment, right? So it's absolutely no different from what I'm doing if I set aside 20 minutes to meditate, right? It's the same mind, it's the same challenge of noticing thought as thought, noticing clearly noticing emotions and their linkage to thought, letting go of any grasping at what's pleasant or pushing what's unpleasant away. I mean, through the judgment and the contraction around experience. As you pay attention to your mind, you notice that you tend to stay in one of two types of contractedness. Your things are pleasant, and you're trying to squeeze more goodness out of it, right? So it's like, oh yeah, finally the good taste, and you're contracted in avarice essentially. And when things are unpleasant, you're pushing them away. You're trying to change. You're bracing yourself against the physical pain.